You know, this is just an end to, a means to the end for me. Let me just back up by telling you, I came to Nagra first as a customer. I have been an audiophile for over 40 years, and I've been chasing my tail for those 40 years. Changing gear all the time, thinking that I could find the Holy Grail. And I realized at some point in this path that the Holy Grail was never going to be found. So I had to sort of relax and accept that. But I worked for a speaker company, an ultra high-end speaker company, and as a result I had access to the best electronics in the world. Take the top levels that you can read in the magazines about, I used them with the speakers that I was representing. They were really revealing speakers too. They showed everything that came before it. And all of that top tier was very, very good hi-fi. But it wasn't until I came across Nagra that it was different. It was music. My shoulders relaxed. It was organic. It was human. And it stood out in that way. So I became a customer for Nagra before I started working for them. And I feel really passionate about the product, and that's why I feel comfortable representing them. And I think what you heard just now sort of corroborates that. I saw many of you just keeping your head in time. You know, you get lost in that. Now you're listening to music. It's a performance you're hearing. And I think if you closed your eyes when we were listening there, you would have thought, I'm listening to music. I'm enjoying a performance. And that's hard to say sometimes with hi-fi gear. You're listening to hi-fi gear. You're analyzing, you're breaking it apart. So that's truly coming from the truth of my soul about Nagra. I wouldn't work for just any company. It would be like selling washing machines for me. What you're listening to is a dream system, obviously, but it gives you an idea of what's possible. This is our flagship turntable. It's one of 70 pieces in the world. It's the Nagra Anniversary Reference Turntable. It's unique in a couple of ways, well, more than a couple of ways. It's designed with sort of a combination of two ways of dealing with resonance problems and vibrations. That is mass and also a sprung turntable. Usually have one or the other. In this particular case, it's about an 80 kilo piece of kit. Aluminum, aircraft grade aluminum, phenolic, and then aircraft grade aluminum in a sandwich. So in and of itself, that constrained layer dampens and eliminates resonances. The mass of it does as well, but also it's a unique suspension. It's both mechanical, or large springs in these towers, and also hydraulic. It's a diver and system, diver and chamber system. So within this tower is filled with a very thick silicone oil. There is a scale for measuring oil. It's the pascals per second scale. And it goes from 1 to 80,000, and I think even more than that. Water has a pascal per second measurement of 1. Milk has 2. Honey is 7,000. And I'm sorry, I don't speak Portuguese, and I appreciate you putting up with my
Everybody understands.
Okay, great. There is a substance, and even as I travel around the world, it's impossible to find a word that people would understand. All I can do is describe what it is. When you fix a roadway, a highway, there's a black substance that they put on it. In English, we call it tar. Yeah. It's really thick. That has a pascal per second rating of 80,000. The oil in this case is 50,000. So it's really, really thick, but it works to damp out vibrations. There's a rod and then this oil that it floats or sinks into. It has a natural resonance of just below 3 hertz. So the music will never affect it. It won't go down to that subsonic level. We've tested it by putting large speakers right next to the turntable, and it's unaffected whatsoever by deep bass. The tone arm is unique. It has only 8 parts to it. You may have seen a similar tone arm in this room for those of you who visit Ajasom on occasion. That particular tone arm that looks a little bit like this one has 45 pieces. Leonardo da Vinci said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and we believe that. So it's a unipivot tone arm. It's got a unique conical shape to it. It sits in a cup, and within that cup is that thick oil as well to also provide some damping. The tone arm itself forms the head shell, so there's no break at all. The counterweight sits very close to the pivot point, as do these azimuth adjusting weights that hang down, so we keep it very low. It's a low effective mass. The cable internal wiring is a custom crystal cable made for us of hyper pure silver. It has a adjustable VTA, sort of like a camera lens, so on the fly you can adjust it. The cartridge is a Nagra cartridge as well. The body itself is a super magnesium. It's unique to Nagra. There are no other cartridges in the world that have this combination of alloy material. It has an interface between the tone arm head shell and the cartridge body of Exium. Exium also makes up the platter. Exium is a unique alloy. It was developed in conjunction with the CNES, the CNES, which is the French equivalent of NASA. The CNES had a mission to Mars, and the purpose of the mission was to measure seismic activity on the surface of Mars. So they're measuring for vibration. And the equipment needed to have no vibration of itself. So it was picking up very, very small vibrations. So the CNES went to the Paris School of Mines and said, can you help us develop an alloy that had very, very low resonant characteristics? The School of Mines, in conjunction with a company called LBI, developed this alloy. And its sole purpose is to be non-resonant. So it's very heavy, very dense, and very non-resonant. It is unique to Nagra in terms of the audio world. We have the worldwide exclusive rights to it to use in audio equipment. So there's an interface between the cartridge and the head shell, as well as the platter itself. It's a 6.5 pound platter, kilo platter, excuse me. And then what's unique about this particular edition is it's got a transparent platter surface to it. And we spent a little extra money on finishing it nicely, as if you would find a collectible or a high-end watch. So it's sort of a tribute to the Swiss watchmaking tradition. I think that's the highlights of the turntable. The latest is the new HD Phono stage. That was 4 years in development, as was the turntable. It was designed sort of on a similar track. The HD Phono started a little bit later. But that's one of the things that I find unique about Nagra also, is that we're maybe not the first to come out with a product, but like Apple, we maybe think we're one of the best once we do come out with it. It's a tube-based phono stage, and it also has a supercap power supply. All I can tell you is listen to the results. It's got an adjustable on-the-fly cartridge loading system in 5 ohm steps, so it's very, very flexible. And we found that it really helps dial in a particular cartridge. Above that is the Nagra Classic Preamp, also a tube-based preamp with in-house made transformers that are sort of the secret sauce to that particular preamp. We have classic amplifiers in run and mono configuration today. They're stereo amplifiers. Very simple circuitry, 2 MOSFETs in the circuit for each channel in the circuit, but a very large power supply. As you can see, any box that doesn't have a knob or a display on it is a power supply. Nagra is a firm believer that it's the power supplies that are a critical component in all of our pieces. So if you were to open that up, you'd see a big transformer in there, taking up most of the real estate. Am I missing anything, George?
No.
So that's a sort of a summary.
No, it's fine. Okay,
Good insight.
I've got a track.
Yes, yes.